now we're going to do the cemetery meditation. So again, you want to make sure that the meditation touches you, but doesn't trigger you, right? So you want to be able to actually touch something authentic, so don't be so detached that there's no response. But you also don't want to become so enmeshed in it that you start freaking out and dying. Okay. So just kind of manage that level of reactivity so that you're responding to what's happening in a really genuine way, but not so much so that you get triggered. So a cemetery, a graveyard, yes? Mm-hmm. Charnel ground, yes, you all know what I'm talking about? Okay. Thumbs up, all right, here we go.
Please don't die now.
We're dying every moment. Okay, so so this meditation, we have to visualize a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a magical appearance happening in front of you or next to you. This is just a memory kind of in your own head of things that you've seen or things you can sort of build with your imagination. So don't worry if you're not a good visualizer, just have a sense of it. Okay. So we'll start with just meditation on the breath in order to refocus and resettle. Reconnect with your motivation. And back to the breath. And then reinforcing the motivation by thinking, in particular, I'm doing this meditation on the way the body will decay in order to understand impermanence, in order to overcome attachment, in order to touch emptiness, and in that way, bringing my mind closer to peace. And so now imagine that you're seated in an ancient cemetery, and next to you is a corpse of a person that was exactly the same age as you are now. And you're observing this person's corpse, this dead body, knowing that they're your same age. And they have only just died a few moments ago. The body is still fresh, but it's obvious that the consciousness has left. So just take a minute and imagine that scenario. And as you picture that dead body there, you think, this is going to happen to me. This is going to happen to this body. Absolutely. Noticing if you feel disturbed by that, if you feel intrigued or curious, if there is some fear. Just notice your responses. But do let the truth of the death touch you. And now imagine that several days have passed, and you're still sitting there next to this dead body, the corpse of a person who died at the same age that you are now. And as time has passed, the body became stiff, and then relaxed again. The skin slightly changed color. And there is some bloating, some distortion of the features. So just imagine what would happen naturally if several days had passed with this corpse out in the elements. Imagine you very bravely observe it. The body is starting to emit unpleasant odors, is starting to attract insects that may cluster around the eyes and nose. And it's very clear that there is no consciousness left in that dead body. And yet once it was walking and talking and animated. So look at it now and think, this is going to happen to me. This will happen to this body. The bloating, the smells, the change of color. And more time passes, and the smell of the body becomes more intense, and larger animals are attracted to it, and have perhaps eaten different portions, especially the soft bits, which to them are just meat. An arm that might have once been exercised, that might have once been massaged, used to hug, used to carry, now the meal for an animal. And you observe all this. And think, this is going to happen to me, to this body right now. At some point, the consciousness will leave it. Only meat will remain. This form I tried to control, I will no longer have control over. I won't be able to decide what happens to it after my consciousness leaves. And more time passes, and the bones become exposed through the meat. Most of the appealing portions have been eaten by animals. The remaining flesh is full of maggots and flies. No dignity in death. The clothing that was worn, torn in many places. This is going to happen to me. This will happen to this body. Really picture it. And imagine that you've been sitting there watching the decay for even a year, and that body out in the elements is now just bones. And the bones themselves are no longer attached to one another, but have fallen apart. And you see this broken skeleton and know this is going to happen to me, to this body. These bones once carried the weight of all of the muscles of the person, carried different kinds of clothing, walked and danced, ran and slept. Now barely able to support themselves as they slowly become dust. This is going to happen to me. And imagine you've been sitting there observing for so long that the bones themselves are dust. And the dust begins to mix with the wind and with the dirt that you sit on until it's difficult to discern what was the earth that was there and what is the bones of that person. The body as if it was never there. This is going to happen to me. This body at some point will decompose, so much so, it will be unfindable. If we are preserved in some way, and hundreds of years from now, someone digs us up, they won't know our name or what this body has done. And so conclude to yourself that this body I have now, that I spend so much time maintaining and feeding and clothing and comforting and entertaining and worrying about, will be dust. No question. At some point. And so how do I want to use this vessel? Do I want to spend my time trying to perfect something that will perish anyway? Or to develop the internal qualities? Or to leave behind some lasting benefit to others? What will make this life worth the resources I consume? If someone accidentally fell off a cliff and while they were falling was trying to fix their hair or change their clothes, we would think, how foolish. You only have a few seconds left. Connect with something meaningful. And yet we live our life like adorning a corpse on its way to the graveyard. And so make a personal conclusion to yourself. What is the best way to use this physical form? This temporary, changeable, this body that is not the self. What should be my priorities? So if you need to stretch or change position,